Okay. So what is ASA? I suspect most of the people who have come on here, and excuse my hoarseness, by the way, it's actually a condition I'm dealing with. But it's a scientific and technical society. We're composed of scientists, engineers, technical people, experts, practitioners, students, educators, and the thing that unites them is that we deal with sound in its various uses. The society was founded in 1921 with the first meeting and published journal, but actually the negotiation started in 1928 over in Bell Labs. There's about 7,000 members all over the world. We may have been started in America, but we're an international society at this point in history. We have 14 different technical committees and groups, and they represent most all, not totally all, the flavors of acoustics. And you could read below. I'm not going to read every one of those, but we really are a very broadband society, which is one of our strengths. And also, I think, is a very collegial society. One of our members invariably speak of the collegiality that we have during our meetings, including Zoom meetings. So next slide, please. Okay, just to introduce our four editors-in-chief, each of our major publications has an EIC. I'm the EIC over all the publications, but I also work as the editor-in-chief for JASA. And they're the nice little blurbs about how wonderful our different publications are right beneath them, but you can read those. Charlie Church, who's on board here, is the editor of JASA Express Letters, which currently is part of JASA, but will be separating to a completely separate open access journal the beginning of next year, and Charlie will talk about that. We have Megan Ballard on board. She's the editor of POMA, Proceedings of Meetings on Acoustics. And Megan just came on board a couple of months ago and is doing a great job for that, and she'll talk about POMA. And then finally, last but not least, we have Art Popper, who's our editor of our magazine, Acoustics Today. And again, Art's magazine is very broadband. It talks about everything that the Acoustical Society does and more. And he'll talk about Acoustics Today. So next slide, please. So let's get on with Meet the Editors. You can see by looking both at the screen and at this picture that that's an old picture. That's before my hair all turned white or gray, and I had had some brown in my beard. But I was younger once. So I'm officially now a septuagenarian. I think there's a U missing in that. My spelling is not so great on that. But my background's actually as a physicist. I did nuclear and particle physics for thesis. And strangely, I wound up working in an underwater sound lab for about 3 years, and then shifted over from there in Texas to Woods Hole Oceanographic here in Massachusetts, where I've spent most of my career from till 2016, and I'm now actually a senior scientist emeritus at Woods Hole. I've been the EIC of our publication since the end of 2014. Formerly, I was editor-in-chief of the IEEE Journal of Oceanic Engineering, another very good publication, and also JASA-EL. I'm a fellow of both those societies, ASA and IEEE. And what I do for fun actually is amateur astronomy, computer gaming, which people might not believe, and also some music, which many people in ASA do. So next slide, please. Okay. People ask, why would you publish in JASA? And we may have been the oldest journal in acoustics. We're not the only journal in acoustics anymore, but we're still one of the very good ones. We're still the #1 cited journal in acoustics in number of citations. We get good downloads. This is the electronic era. People like PDFs. We get about 1.7 million downloads in 2019. So we're getting your articles get in and they get read. We have a very large editorial board. We have 125 plus, the number fluctuates slightly, subject experts, from the 14 groups, and as well as education and standards. And it gets your article into the right hands for somebody to edit it. And we want to get your research noticed. That's really something nowadays you really got to advertise yourself. And so we're working very hard to bring maximum exposure, working together with AIPP and our own people, to our articles through email, social media, conference promotions, and so on. So next slide, please. Okay, our impact factor is 1.78. Our goal really is to push this up to above 2. I think part of why it is we're very broadband, and some of our areas are very hot topics, others are pretty traditional. Our publications have been increasing. We've really been doing more publishing, and our citations are increasing. If people wonder about our acceptance rate for JASA, it's about 55% this year. We aim for about 50%, but again, a plus or minus as usual. The average time, and again, excuse my raspy throat, from first submission till you get a decision is 51 days. It's not light speed, but it's not tortoise speed either. We try to be as fast as we can. We keep looking for ways to cut it down a little bit, but we also want to make sure we have a quality review. And so quality really always does come first. Like I say, we've gotten faster, and our quality from at least the letters we've gotten from people has stayed as good as they want. On social media, and I thank our staff for this, I'm not the social media person, but we have Twitter, we have 1,800 followers, Facebook 1,500 followers, and we're really making a lot of efforts to be exposed on social media, which a lot of our younger authors and readers and stuff follow. So next slide, please. Okay. Next, oh, okay, thank you. Okay, one of the things that we do that I think has really helped with our impact factor and the fact that people look at our stuff is we do a lot more special issues. People like to see collections of articles. We have teams of guest editors who are experts in the various fields, and these have been very well received, and we notice that people are downloading them a lot more and the rest. We also have free reviews, tutorials, and what we call forum or discussion articles. Normally we invite those, but you can also propose them to us. Each month we have technical area picks, which are picked by our technical committee chairs, I'm sorry, each quarter. And they're featured on our homepage. They're promoted. They're free access for a while. We have a new feature, which we call Reflections, which was launched this July, and it takes a look back at our historical kind of seminal papers from JASA. And excuse me again, I apologize for this. There's, it's been well received by our readers. There's a lot of papers that if you have a course, you pass these out to the students and say, here's some classic papers. We're putting them out there, making sure people get to see them. And we're also going to start a series of a podcast series, which will be interviewing some of our authors and talking about their publications. So next slide, please. So let me stop my blurb about JASA, and I did see popped up on the screen some questions, which we will address towards the end. So without too much further ado, let me turn the screen over to Dr. Charlie Church.
As the slide says, I'm Charlie Church, and as Jim said, I'm the editor-in-chief of JASA Express Letters. My education is similar to Jim's, physics background from Westminster College and small college in Western Pennsylvania, then a master and PhD in radiation biology from University of Rochester, since I was interested in physics and biology and all sorts of other things. I'm a fellow of the Acoustical Society and also the American Institute of Ultrasound in Medicine. I served on a raft of committees and with other organizations. you can read the list, ASA and AIUM, that's no surprise to anybody. Perhaps people don't know what the International Electrotechnical Commission is. I serve on two committees there. One is TC, Technical Committee 87 on ultrasonics, and the other is Scientific Committee 62B on diagnostic imaging equipment, and my specialty is, of course, ultrasound. We write standards for all sorts of different electrotechnical equipment. There are over 100 individual committee sections in the organization. And so anything from transmission of electric power to devices to this, that, and the other thing. It's the largest or very large non-governmental organization in the world. And we just have a bunch of academics and industry people getting together and writing standards so things work together the way they ought to. The other thing is the NCRP, the National Committee on Radiation Protection and Measurement. I got into it because of my background in ultrasound and biological effects. And from there, I did some work on secondary cancers and cardiopulmonary effects after radiotherapy because my original background was in radiation research. I've been a reviewer for 35 journals. I have several patents, 4 of which I managed to remember long enough to get into my resume. I have various interests: hiking, gardening. My wife says kvetching, so there that word is. If you don't know what that is, you can look it up. Next, please. As Jim said, the JASA Express Letters is to become an independent journal on January 1st of next year. And previously, Express Letters was published as a special section of JASA. But to respond to the needs of our members and authors and industry and people who don't fit in any of those categories also, the general public, for instance, ASA decided that Express Letters will transition into a gold level open access journal in 2021. As always, the new JASA Express Letters will provide rapid and open discussion in all fields of acoustics. Now, next. I've just gotten a note from my computer that my internet connection is unstable. And I'd like to thank Comcast for that. Next slide deals with author benefits for this transition. The first thing is all articles published that can be covered by the Creative Commons copyright license will be covered that way. Authors will retain full copyright of their work, and researchers can freely reuse material with proper attribution. And of course, there are many details to this, and you can see that website for those details. We're also increasing the page length of articles from 6 to 7 pages, which should be helpful to authors. Additional article types will be included, such as perspectives and tutorials or mini reviews. We'll have reduced article processing charges for ASA members. Special issues, we'll periodically organize special issues on rapidly emerging topics in acoustics. More extensive promotion of authors' papers on the journal website and social media. While Express Letters was previously published as a section of JASA, in the future will be available exclusively and separately online. And articles will publish as soon as the editorial and production processes are complete, and we'll compile them into monthly issues. Next. Additional information and statistics. We'll have an online table of contents, of course. It will have sections the way JASA currently does, with its 14 technical areas, plus education and acoustic standards and practice. Details on the processing charge. That will have to increase. And the first year it'll be $750 US for members and $900 for non-members. And then following that, in 2022, currently the plan, $900 for members and $1,200 for non-members per paper. And something that we don't like, but we cannot avoid because those are the rules. As a new journal, Express Letters will not have an impact factor for the first 2 years. And in order to mitigate the effects of that as much as we can, we'll be commissioning content to make an early impact and help us out with regard to that number, which is important to especially young researchers and professionals. Current statistics for our journal, our acceptance rate is about 53% for this year so far. The average time from first submission to first decision is 37 days. And our acceptance of papers is quite broad. Right now, we've counted up to, or exactly 28 countries we've had papers from this year, including, for example, America and China, Korea, Canada, France, Germany, United Kingdom, and of course, 20 other countries. Next. And in order to promote articles to get more people interested and authoring and reading the journal, we'll have a number of ways to promote authors' papers. We'll have a new monthly cover with a featured article showcasing one of an article's figures, or if there's only one figure, of course, just that, or a stock photo if we really need to. New monthly email table of contents alerts to everybody who's interested, including all ASA members. Editors' picks on articles for the journal homepage. And we've recently launched Express Letters Facebook and Twitter accounts to promote ourselves and authors' work on social media. Something else that we're particularly interested and excited about is that in the future, we hope within the year, we'll have video abstracts available as an option for authors, which will appear with their articles online. And also, Jim mentioned the upcoming Acoustical Society of Publications podcasts, interviews with authors on their publications. And because this transition has a lot of details to it, and I don't want to occupy the entire time talking about Express Letters, for more information, you can go to, on the transition, you can go to these two websites given on this slide. Okay, thank you.
All righty. Our next speaker is Dr. Art Popper. So Art.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good day, everybody. So I'm Art Popper. I am retired, theoretically, from the University of Maryland. I actually discovered today I'm busier than I've ever been in my life, including published a whole bunch of papers in JASA this year. I got my undergraduate degree from NYU and doctorate from City University of New York, and then spent 9 years in the University of Hawaii and 9 years in the medical school at Georgetown, and moved to Maryland in '87, where I've been pretty active on campus. And I'm professor emeritus and research professor right now. I am part of Animal Bioacoustics in ASA, and my research has been on the hearing system, the evolution of hearing, mostly in fishes, although I've dabbled with sharks and marine mammals and birds and all kinds of other creatures over my career. But my interest now is the effect of anthropogenic sound or man-made sound on fishes and other marine life. And I'm very involved these days in regulatory issues and mitigation of these sounds. Editing is a big part of my life, and it is, besides editing Acoustics Today, I am the editor of what's called the Springer Handbook of Auditory Research, along with my dear friend and colleague Dick Bay, an article about whom is in the latest issue of Acoustics Today. Dick and I started to do 8 volumes in SHAR. We figured that would cover the whole field of auditory neuroscience. Well, volume 23 will be out next couple of weeks, and we still have a whole bunch of volumes to go. Then Dick and I retire, and 2 other ASA members, Allison Coffin and Joe Cisneros, will take over. But anyways, so my editing is a big part of my life, and I continue to enjoy it and doing what I do with Acoustics Today. So let's go to the next slide, if we could, please. So you've probably all seen Acoustics Today. It's unique in that it is not a research peer-reviewed journal. It's a science and technology magazine. And I like to think of it, for those of you like Jim and I who are old enough, will remember the Scientific American of the 50s and 60s, where articles were written by scientists, very scholarly, but yet they were written for a lay audience. So an educated layperson could understand and use these articles and learn a great deal about them. The thrust of the whole thing from back then was the Scientific American off prints could be used in teaching. In fact, when I was an undergraduate and graduate student, many of the things we were required to read were Scientific American off prints. And while we don't do that necessarily for Acoustics Today, the model I use is, when I ask people to write articles, is to follow the old Scientific American pattern and write a scholarly piece, but really focus on the fact that the audience for Acoustics Today is all members of ASA. Everybody in ASA gets Acoustics Today delivered to them. We recently did a survey, as some of you may know, of what members like. And I was surprised. I expected a lot of people to say, well, we only want the print version. But in fact, it was clear that a substantial portion of the members enjoy getting something in print. They can browse through. And in fact, the last issue went online. I got very little feedback. And as soon as the hard copy came out, lots of people were dropping me notes, and they're all complimentary about what the quality of the issue. But the fact is, people enjoy getting this, and people do read the articles. The vast majority of respondents to our survey show that they read many, if not all, of the articles and the other features. So we really try to focus on making sure articles are readable by this broad audience. And that's an interesting struggle to get authors to write that way. All of us are trained to write for peer-reviewed journals. Our audiences are 23 peers in the world. But Acoustics Today is not that audience. I really push people to write in ways that will make the articles appealing, have appealing titles, have appealing openings, and put material in the context of the reader. So the reader, no matter what their field is, will see why this article may be interesting. It works well with some authors. It does not work well with others. But I work very hard with the authors to achieve the vision we have. I tell them that I'm going to be the most critical editor and constructive editor they will ever encounter. And after 9 and 10 drafts going back and forth with me, some of the people, I'm not sure they like me anymore. But in any case, I really work very hard with the others, the editors. We have an associate editor, Michelle Dent, who's at Buffalo, and she works with me on this. And of course, Kat Setzer, who is on here, is our major domo editor. I guess her title is editorial assistant or associate, but she manages the magazine, and we couldn't function without her. So as part of the issue of each issue, we have a series of articles that are on various scholarly topics of science and technology. The magazine also contains what we call sound perspectives, which are essays about ASA activities and various topics that may be of broad interest to ASA members. So in the next issue that you haven't seen yet, we have several really wonderful articles about diversity in ASA. We have one on responsible conduct of research, and a variety of different topics that people find interesting in any aspect of STEM. The goal really is to have things that everyone wants to read something about. As I've said, all members of ASA are receiving a magazine, and I like to tell people that, especially from the more technical areas, that I am their audience. I'm an animal bioacoustics, and if I can't understand the article from engineering acoustics or signal processing, it doesn't go. And so I become their worst enemy because I force people to write. And conversely, if it's something in animal bioacoustics, I really push people to make the articles understandable so that Jim Lynch will understand them. It doesn't always work, but that's because of Jim. The magazine is open access. It has it goes to everybody. As I said, it's also online, and we have 800 or 1,000 people outside of ASA who get regular announcements about each article. And their articles are interesting, and they're being read by students, by regulators, by legislators. It's really a bridge across acoustics not only for ASA members, but to educate the outside world about what we do. And I think we've been pretty successful. Next slide, please. One of the things we've done recently with Acoustics Today is we did a revamp of the magazine. It was getting a little bit old. It hadn't been changed in about 8 or 9 years. And we found our design team at Opus Design, which is a wonderful group that Kat found for us a couple of years ago, redesigned the magazine, and it shows we have changes in the table of contents and the way the articles are readable. We didn't change any of the content or the ideas, the philosophy of the magazine, but we made it so it's more readable and approachable. And we actually won an international award for the new design, and we're very, very proud of that. That the magazine actually is seen as being a really outstanding way of presenting material. Next slide, please. Next slide, thank you. So as I said, we try to balance articles from all areas of acoustics. The critical thing about Acoustics Today is that articles are invited. This is not where people submit articles and we consider them. And the reason we make them invited is that we want to balance the areas of acoustics in the magazine. You know, I'm sure if I made it so it's a submission only, I get thousands of articles on one topic or another, and we really try to balance the thing quite carefully. At the same time, I very much encourage people sending me ideas for articles. And many of the articles we get are because people have sent in ideas that that strike me as being interesting. And if they strike me as being interesting and the person seems like someone who could write well, I'll take them. And I'm really looking to have increased numbers of articles by younger colleagues, by women, and we've been doing that pretty successfully. I also find articles I read something in the New York Times that sounds interesting about acoustics, and if it's, especially if it's a member of ASA, but even if it's not, I may write to the person and ask them to write an article on Acoustics Today. I've gotten articles that way. We could go to meetings, I'll go to ASA meetings, and I go to different sessions and find articles, find things that sound interesting to me. The cover here is from at the meeting in, I think it was San Diego. We had this concert on violins, and I just was fascinated by the concert. And it turns out the person who the concert was based on a book that really came out on an ASA member. And before I had left the room for the concert, I had gotten her to write an article for me. Plus the guy sitting next to me also was interesting, and I got him to write an article for me. So I keep inviting people when I find things that are interesting. As I say, sound perspectives, I try to get things that are about ASA. We had a whole series about technical committees and what they do. I'm going to put that together, by the way, in a single booklet for people to have on committee structures and how ASA works. I try to use Acoustics Today as a way to talk about and communicate about ASA so members understand the society better. So that's why we have articles by the president of ASA, and I encourage the presidents to talk about what's going on so members have a sense of the society. But I try to get all kinds of interesting things. Again, if someone has an interesting thing to write about or thinking about, I'm glad to hear about it. My favorite, I think, is one that was in a couple of issues back. I was invited by a guy to help him on an article he was writing for a magazine on fishing. He's an international expert on fishing and boating, and I wound up getting to know the guy. I persuaded him, or he repaid me by taking my grandson and I on his fishing boat, on his boat one day, and I reciprocated. I made him write an article for Acoustics Today about how fishermen think about acoustics, and it was kind of fun to get. So I'm open to any kind of idea. Is there another slide? In any case, so I'm in there, but if my email is on here, please drop me a note.
Okay, thanks, Art. Okay, our next speaker is our POMA editor, Megan Ballard. So Megan, do you want to take it away?
Yes, thank you, Jim. So as Jim said, my name is Megan Ballard, and I'm the editor for POMA. And POMA stands for Proceedings on Meetings of Acoustics. And POMA publishes proceedings for both our ASA meetings as well as meetings that are co-sponsored by the ASA. As was mentioned at the beginning of this meeting, I'm new to the POMA editorialship. I started in March of this year, but I've been with POMA since 2016 as an associate editor. I've also been involved with the ASA for several years. I was chair of the Underwater Acoustics TC, also involved with Women in Acoustics, the panel on public policy and publication policy. I'm a research scientist at the Applied Research Laboratories at the University of Texas at Austin, where I study underwater sound propagation and geoacoustic inference. And I have a PhD in acoustics from Penn State. And before that, I have a Bachelor's of Science in Ocean Engineering from Florida Atlantic University. Okay, so now I'm going to tell you a little bit about POMA, and I'm just going to touch on a few of the points that I have on this slide here. The first thing I want to make sure everyone knows is that publishing in POMA is free for authors, and this is a benefit that's included as part of your registration fee for ASA meetings. POMA represents an opportunity to turn your presentation or poster into a published paper. And in POMA, your paper gets an assigned DOI for ensuring identification and increased exposure. I also want to make sure everyone knows that POMA articles are published online, available without cost for all readers, and they're indexed in scholarly databases. And the final point I want to draw your attention to is that POMA works to get your research noticed. Published articles are actively promoted on social media and with email campaigns. Next, please. So I wanted to show you a little bit about what's currently happening with POMA, and for that I'm showing you publications that we've had over the past 5 years. And what you can see from this graph is that all technical areas of the Acoustical Society of America are represented in POMA. There's a few additional categories here. We also publish proceedings for talks that are listed as interdisciplinary and from education in acoustics. And we also offer the opportunity for organizers of special sessions to write special session summaries. And these can describe what happened at any particular special session. Looking at the statistics, I also noted here that 2017 had a lot of POMA publications, and that was due to the Honolulu meeting, which took place at the end of 2016, and then the Boston meeting, which was in the summer of 2017. And these were both exceptionally large meetings for the ASA, and were also co-sponsored or they also involved members from other societies. We've continued to have submissions to POMA into the current year, even though our spring meeting was canceled. And that's due in part to the fact that POMA accepts submissions on a rolling basis from previous ASA meetings. And you can see that we've, even though have a whole meeting left this year, we've had a fair number of presentations in 2020. And we're looking forward to our fall virtual meeting in December. Next slide. I also wanted to show you a little bit about what we've done lately with co-sponsored meetings. Almost half of POMA submissions come from meetings that are co-sponsored by the ASA. POMA is available for any meeting that is co-sponsored by the ASA. And you can see a list of meetings between 2015 and 2020 here. And I just wanted to draw special attention to the most recent 2 of these meetings. On the left panel, you can see I have a note about the International Conference on Ultrasonics, which took place in 2019. This was the largest of our recent co-sponsored meetings with almost 130 papers. And I just wanted to take a moment to give a big thanks to our POMA associate editors from biomedical, computational, engineering, physical, and structural acoustics for handling these submissions. And then on the right column, I wanted to take a minute to note the recent International Conference on Underwater Acoustics. This was a much smaller meeting, but it's important because it was the first virtual meeting handled by POMA. And this was a one-day meeting that took place on the 9th of September of this year. There were 50 eligible submissions, and we've already received 17 of these papers. So we're doing well with virtual meetings, and we're looking ahead to the virtual ASA meeting this December. Next slide, please. Okay, finally, I want to tell you about how POMA is on social media. We have active accounts on both Facebook and Twitter, and these accounts feature content from published POMA articles on a daily basis. We also have an ongoing YouTube campaign, and in May of 2020, we posted our first YouTube video about me, our new editor, which was a little bit more about me. And we're working on 2 new YouTube videos. The first one will be about what makes a good POMA, and then the other one will be about the benefits in publishing for POMA in students. So finally, I just want to remind everyone to publish in POMA. If you've given an ASA talk at any previous meeting of the ASA, we welcome your submission to POMA. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Megan. We're running a little long on time here, but if people don't mind, we can spend a few minutes extra. I don't think we're tied strictly to an hour. If people can stay a little longer for questions and stuff. So we give our presenters a little time to each to say their piece here. But I don't think anybody from our staff will have any objection to staying a couple more minutes and trying to answer questions. So to proceed here, I'd like to introduce Bridget D'Amelia, who's the Director of Publishing Development for AIPP, does all the journals there, not just ours. And we've worked with Bridget for a number of years. And Bridget will give you some idea of what our publisher does. So Bridget, the floor is yours.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Jim. Just want to say I appreciate the opportunity to be here with all of you today and to give you a brief overview of AIP Publishing. I've been with the organization for over 10 years now, primarily working with our publishing partners, but I also oversee a subset of the AIP Publishing journals as well. Next slide. Okay, great. So a little bit about our story. So our story essentially begins in 1931, and this was during the Great Depression when the American Institute of Physics was formed by 5 scientific societies, and ASA being one of them. And primarily these societies came together because they wanted to create a non-for-profit, cost-efficient publishing arm, basically for them to come together and distribute their print journals efficiently and also at a low cost. So then since then, AIP has grown to include 10 member societies, and we have also now established a program of highly ranked journals of our own, including magazine Physics Today that you may be familiar with. We've also launched a new books program this year, and this is all to, of course, serve the physics community. Next slide, please. And then in 2013, AIP Publishing was formed as a wholly owned, non-for-profit subsidiary of AIP. And the mission of AIP Publishing is primarily to support the charitable, scientific, and educational programs of AIP, along with our member societies, through scholarly publishing activities. And you could see here through our little fun and facts and figures image here, is that essentially, our publishing partners are really the backbone of AIP Publishing. We publish 11 subscription journals on the behalf of our publishing partners. We also publish 2 open access journals for our publishing partners as well, along with our own portfolio of 14 subscription journals, which includes our flagship titles, the Journal of Applied Physics, Applied Physics Letters, and the Journal of Chemical Physics. We also publish AIP conference proceedings. And as I mentioned before, Books is a new program for us, which is exciting, which just launched in September of this year. And of course, we host the citation platform, which currently hosts now over 1 million articles in our archive. Next slide, please. Okay, so this graph is just like to show you just our broad range of services for our publishing partners. So we include publishing support anywhere from manuscript submission to production to journal hosting. Of course, we also offer marketing services and advertising services for our members as well. And as of today, AIP Publishing is the proud publisher for 10 societies. Next slide, please. Okay, those just, yeah, I had animation on this. Sorry, Malene. And that's just are the logos for our publishing partners. Okay, you can go to next. Okay, great. And again, so for nearly 90 years, we've been the proud publishing partner for the Acoustical Society of America. The ASA, of course, has a really long history of promoting and disseminating acoustics research. And we work in collaboration with the ASA team to ensure that all the goals are met for the publications. And so, Melina, I think there's some more animation on this just to show you. So we publish, of course, on behalf of ASA, the flagship journal JASA, JASA Express Letters, POMA. We also host the legacy titles on the citation platform as well. And I think there's another animation, and of course, soon to come, as you heard, we're so excited to host the launch of JASA Express Letters, which is coming soon in January 2021. So with that, I just want to say thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to be here today and to listen to my ASA colleagues. And I'm open for any questions when we get to the discussion session. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Bridget. All righty. In addition to our editors and our publisher, we have an incredibly good staff. And I think a big part of this is that people interact with the staff all the time, but they don't get the headlines. They're not on the front page a lot. They're in the third and fourth page, and I think this is a good day for them to be on the front page. So I would like to present our various staff, and I believe the first one is our managing editor, Liz Burry.
Yes.
And so Liz, you're on, and I'll turn the floor over to you.
Great, thank you. Hi, I'm Liz Burry. I'm the Senior Managing Editor of ASA Publications. For my background, I have a BA in English and a BA in Humanities from the University of Central Florida, and a Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing from Emerson College. I started with the ASA in 2016 as Managing Editor for JASA and JASA Express Letters. Last December, I transitioned to the role of Senior Managing Editor, and I now oversee the periodicals portfolio for ASA Publications, JASA, JASA Express Letters, POMA, and Acoustics Today. I developed the vision, strategies, and initiatives for future directions for ASA Publications, together with the Editor-in-Chief, journal editors, and publication staff. I also ensure the continued success, operational excellence, and efficiency of our publications. I have over 12 years of experience in scholarly publishing, and I'm a director on the board of directors for the International Society of Managing and Technical Editors, which is a society for editorial professionals in scholarly publishing. And I'm also an editor for their publication editorial office news. If you'd like to learn more about the publication staff, please check out our article from the fall 2020 issue of Acoustics Today for more. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you very much, Liz. I believe, Kelly, you're up next. So, Kelly, floor is yours.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly Quigley, as Jim said. I don't know if my camera's on, is it? I don't see. There I am. Okay.
Yes, it's on.
I see it now. Thanks. So yes, I'm Kelly Quigley, and I've been with Acoustical Society of America since 2004. My experience in scientific publishing began as a member of the publishing division staff at the American Institute of Physics. And there I served in several positions, including senior production editor for a special projects department, chief production editor for quite a few of the AIP journals, and then turned into Chief Production Editor for Journal of Acoustical Society of America. So that prior experience has proved to be useful in my current role as JASA's manuscript manager. In that role, my responsibilities encompass publication process from initial submissions to JASA all the way through transmittals to AIP and everything that goes along in between. I have interactions quite frequently with authors, reviewers, coordinating editors, associate editors, publication team, AIP, a vast amount of people. In addition to that role as JASA manuscript manager, I also serve as a member of the ASA headquarters staff. There I attend the ASA meetings, I train and supervise the registration desk when we go to the meetings, and coordinate the plenary sessions where the ASA awards, prizes, and fellowships are presented. So thank you, everyone, and if you need me, please reach out to me at jasa@acousticalsociety.org if you have any questions or need anything from me. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Kelly.
Sure.
Sana, you're up next. So Sana, floor is yours.
Right. Okay, so I'm Sana McDaniel. I have been the manuscript manager for JASA-EL since 2002. Well, originally it was Arlo, so 18 years, I can't believe it. Time has flown by. I'm not gonna enlist all my daily activities because they are very similar to what you just heard from Kelly. Interactions with the authors, reviewers, and associate editors. This is a part-time position for me. My background is in international law and foreign affairs. I got my degrees from University of Helsinki in Finland, and then I worked for my third master's in science and technology policy at Georgia Tech. My full-time position is at MIT, where I'm a senior program manager, where I run an international consortium, which is based on academic makerspaces, entrepreneurship, and innovation, the way how they come together and support each other in a academic setting. And we have members around the world, and I teach Finnish at Harvard University at my spare time. If you have any questions, you can reach me, and thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Sana. Helen, you're next in line here, so floor is yours now, Helen.
I'm Helen. I'll start over. I'm the POMA manuscript manager, and in that role, I am the first one to see any of the submissions that come through. I do the initial technical check, sometimes sending manuscripts back to authors with suggestions on how to format it better or follow the guidelines better. After that, I handle the assignment, and then post acceptance, I handle all of the prep and indexing for the accepted manuscripts before publication. In addition to that, I help out with my editor, Megan, and the 17 or 18 associate editors that we have right now. I field inquiries from authors. I prepare and facilitate our co-sponsored meeting program, which has really grown over the last few years. And the fun part about that is I get to tailor submission processes and cover pages to include personalized logos and things like that. We're really proud of that program, and it has been great working with several different groups like the Aquatic Noise Group and the Ultrasonics and Nonlinear Acoustics, Underwater Acoustics, so it's fun. I develop and maintain the promotional materials on POMA. I also work with AIPP and the marketing department on sending out emails of recently published papers and pre-meeting promotions to get authors and attendees excited about submitting to POMA. I represent POMA at the ASA meetings. We normally have a publications booth, and currently we are working on a virtual type of booth. So please, if you are attending the meeting, please check us out, and we'll be happy to talk to you. As a member of the publication staff, I started in 2013. We were a much smaller group in a small office in West Barnstable, Mass. And because of our size, I was able to work with the Acoustics Today team when I started as the editorial assistant there. And also I was tasked with starting the ASA Press books on fulfillment by Amazon, hosting them and being the seller account. So it's been a fun many years with ASA, and I'm so happy to see everything has grown and the staff has grown and the collaboration is great. My background is in public relations, and I have a degree from journalism, a degree in journalism and communications from the Cronkite School at ASU. I started my career in PR and then worked my way into teaching. And now I live on Cape Cod and spend a lot of time at the beach. So anyway, you can always reach me at POMA at acousticalsociety.org. Thank you.
All right, thanks very much, Ellen, appreciate it. Let's see, we've got Kat Setzer, you're up. So take it away, Kat.
Hello, I'm Kat Setzer. I have been with the ASA since 2017. My background is similar to Liz's. I have a BA in English from University of Central Florida and an MFA in creative writing from Emerson College. I started at the ASA as the editorial coordinator for Acoustics Today when Helen stepped into just doing POMA. And I have been there for the entire time that I've been with ASA. That's still a major part of my day-to-day duties. At this point, though, I also manage the social media for JASA, POMA, and JASA Express Letters. And then I help out with a bunch of other tasks in the office. So like I run backup for Sana and Kelly when they need help or they need to be out of the office. I do cover images for JASA. I coordinate reflections stuff with the authors. A lot of kind of just going back and forth with authors and editors and such. And I work on speed stuff for our submissions for JASA and JASA-EL to make sure that things stay on time and on schedule. And a lot of other things. So that's about it.
That sounds like enough, Kat. Thank you. And finally, our newest member of the staff, Melanie Walters, and she's our publications business manager. So Melanie, tell people about yourself, please.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Melanie Walters. I'm the publications business manager. I am the newest member of the team, having joined ASA in March of this year. Previously, I worked in government relations and compliance. So joining ASA is a complete change, a very challenging and engaging change for me. So I am definitely learning the ropes. My background is in advertising and marketing communications and also computer engineering. In my new role, it is a mix of business administration and marketing. I oversee handling of all the financial initiatives and goals, along with all the business operations for the publications office. And I do that in line with the editor-in-chief and the senior managing editor. One of my bigger projects this year that I'm still working on is I manage and steward the ASA Books program. And a very exciting project that is in the works as we are speaking is the ASA Publications podcast, which I will be producing and hosting. So I hope that will be a nice addition for authors and readers, and I hope everyone will listen. I also work with the publication staff on administrative and project-based goals. So anytime any projects or things of that nature come up, I'll step in and help with those as well. And just a little bit personal about myself. enjoy photography and travel. I am an amateur photographer by heart, and with the lockdown, it's given me a lot of time to really explore that and engage art in general and my likes and dislikes. So this has been a pretty good time for me to kind of indulge in that particular hobby. And I just want to say thank you.
All righty. Well, Mulaney, thank you. I'll put my picture back on here. We started about 5 minutes late, and we're actually 5 minutes over here, but we do have time for a few questions and answers. We'll stick around. I do want to say, on behalf of all the editors, we have a brilliant staff, and we are very, very fortunate to have the staff and that we do have here. If anything works with all of our journals and publications, I think they're one of the prime factors. So, all right, I think at this point, maybe what we could do is, Mulaney, you are, I believe you and Liz are the keeper of the questions. And if you want to just read out, say, the first question or so, Liz, we'll try and do about 5-10 minutes of questions here. And like I said, if we don't get to some questions, it gets too long, we will definitely email it. So I think we do have names attached to the questions, don't we, Liz?
Yes, we do.
And we'll also send it to the whole list. So, all right, why don't you put the questions out there? And then if it's addressed to any particular person, I'll ask them just to unmute and answer the question.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, so far we only have 2 questions that have come in. The first question was, what are the lower and upper quartiles for average time from first decision?
Okay. We do look at what the distribution of time responses are, and we have looked at that number. I couldn't off the top of my head give you what the quartile numbers are and stuff, but I can say this, the part of it that we most want to trim down is the long in the tooth type papers. And that's why we have Kat Setzer and others sending out frequent reminders. If at any point in the process it seems to get bogged down a little, Kat basically contacts people and says, let's speed this up a little bit. So we really do want to trim the long part of the tail of the distribution down. And I think we've succeeded with that pretty well. There are sometimes too, some papers will take longer just because there's some questions on them or some things hang up. And that's just because a publication's also a human enterprise. But I think by and large, I can ask for the person who asked for that, if Liz could try and find some of those numbers, and we'll put them out there for you. Okay, so that's the long and the short answer.
Great. And the second question we got was, could you describe how you determine which papers are selected for the technical area picks?
Yeah, the technical area picks basically get fielded to the technical chairs. And so we have a list of papers that'll be published during that time period. We field those to the technical chairs and let them make the decision on that. So it does go into the hands of the individual committees. So you do have the proper person kind of making the recommendation there. And of course, like anything, there's a little bit of subjectivity. Some people might like one subject more than another, but we try to pick things that are interesting to people. So when we're picking things, both editors' picks or technical chair picks, the rest, we try and pick things that we think will interest the biggest slice of readers. So hopefully that's a reasonable answer.
Great. Yeah, those are the only questions we had that have come in.
Yeah, and I saw a little comment from the one person that yeah, unfortunately one paper hung up longer. We do, I think when I came on as editor, we hadn't been as sensitive to that tail of the distribution where things go longer. We really do try, if we see things hanging up for a while, like I said, Kat Setzer is our first line of defense on that. And we have a lot of automated reminders. We're very sensitive. We don't want the papers to take any longer to process than they need to. And, you know, and we do, the mean number just tells us, are we doing on the average a good job? And I think cutting down the tail, the long tail of the distribution says, okay, are we hanging people up? And I like those numbers to be good. On the fast side of it, you know, whoopee, yes, we got some papers done more quickly, and we're happy with that, of course, but we're not too worried about that quartile. It's the other part. So, okay.
Oh, we actually got another question in.
I saw that. I saw that. Right? Yeah, no, that's a good question. The COVID issue, and there's lots of them out there, by the way. Maybe I'll make a comment since Charlie Church and I are both co-editors on that. There's lots of articles published on COVID and stuff like that. This is a unique event in the world, not a good one, but a unique one. And the better it can be documented, the better people can research it afterwards. You know, that and if we put out papers that vet some of these results, it gives people some good things to look at afterwards. And I know other journals are doing the same. I've seen lots of different publications that have parts on COVID. And I think that's one of the good functions of journals, to really put stuff out there for the community that they could use, not just immediately, but down the line. So some of these things, we're being probably a little looser some ways in putting out some partial results and the rest of it. But what we're looking at is what can researchers really use, you know, both now and also later, when we actually look at what we did with this in hindsight. So no, it's a good question, and that's the type of issue I really like to see, especially if there's a current event or something going on. We had another kind of similar one which had social issues, which was ultrasound in air, the effects of ultrasonics, and could ultrasonics produce harmful effects. And again, these had to be academic papers. They had to be vetted, which when you're talking about different devices and stuff, you better be very careful about vetting them. But we thought that was a service to people to see, okay, what is the score on some of these ultrasonic devices that are out there? And of course, some of them are imaging devices that are being used for COVID too. So, I mean, there's all sorts of interplay. But yeah, we do like to have special issues that are of relevance. And, you know, some of them are academic, some of them are relevant current events, but we hope all of them are interesting. Are print copies of AT only available for ASA members? Yes, I believe so. Is that correct, Liz?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. I mean, it's online. But yeah, the print copies, which are very nice, and Art, you know, glowed, you know, about them and waxed poetic, but he's exactly right. They're very, very nicely done issues. And so, yeah, I'm not sure if we have any way of getting it to non-members who'd want it, and maybe that's a good question to put out there. So we could maybe think about that if there's anybody else who's looking for the print issues.
Jim, can I put my 2 cents on that?
You absolutely can, Art.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, we've looked, Kat and I have looked into the cost of this, and unless we knew that we had a need for issues, just printing extra copies would actually be rather costly, I think. You know, we could, you know, in theory, we could, you know, to make some money, we could ASA offer subscriptions to the magazine.
Yeah,
you know, that might be something to worth thinking about. You know,
yeah.
Is it not a negative? You know, if it doesn't harm us, you know, that may be something. Actually, that would be an interesting idea to think about.
Why don't we just say we'll look into it?
Yeah, I think we should.
I believe.
In other words, Kat will look into it.
Okay, sounds good. Any other questions?
Oh, Jim, I wanted to loop back to the COVID-related special issue. I think the person asking was asking if it's currently open-ended and if there's a tentative deadline in mind.
Yeah, I think right now we're leaving it fairly open-ended. I don't mind extending it if it makes sense to extend something. We have the issues that papers will be published as they come in, the rest of it, but I think we could leave this open for a while. I'm hoping, I think everybody's hoping that this COVID crisis will be over sooner than later. at which point we will gladly close the issue. But I think while things are still going on, I don't think it would be hurtful to keep entertaining papers because people are still doing research and finding out things. So, and also I think even post-COVID for a short time, people want to see how things revert. And I think that might be an interesting part of the topic. So for right now, I think we're keeping things open-ended. Okay. Any other questions? Oh, well, from Francesco, thank you very much. I'm very glad people did come on. Hopefully we've given reasonable answers. If you have any other questions, feel free to contact us and we certainly will get back to you and the rest of the people who signed on for this session. So I think on that note, I'd like to thank all our editors, Bridget from AIPP, all of our staff, and all of our participants for showing up today. I saw one more question. Do we plan joint issues with other societies? Send me an email on that, Stefan. We haven't, but like I say, we're always receptive to ideas. So thank you very much. Take care, everybody, and thanks for participating. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.